Welcome to Political Trade Secrets, an inside look at campaigns and politics, where we pull back the curtain, look under the hood, and investigate all aspects of politics and how elections are won. Now, here's your host, Dustin Olson.
And welcome to Political Trade Secrets. I'm your host, Dustin Olson. Thank you for joining us today, all of you who are streaming in from across the internet. We're going to be talking about the 8 pro tips for political texting. This is by far the breakthrough tactic from the 2020 election cycle, with big tech and all these different really constraints that have been put on conservatives and Republicans. In particular, for Republicans, this is the tactic that you want to be embracing for this upcoming election cycle. It's a way for you to have a direct relationship with your donors, with your voters, with your volunteers. It's an excellent way to be able to really connect with people and have two-way conversation. So before we get into the show, I'd like to bring in my co-host, our co-pilot on this journey to political trade secrets, the Buckeyes' best, Sean Bartley. Sean, how the heck are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Good morning to you. Good morning to everyone out there. I'm looking forward to discussing a lot of great things that are going on and using this tactic in politics. It's been amazing to see how this has grown. So,
absolutely. You know, it really is. I would say it is the breakthrough tactic in this last election cycle for us. We really found that we could send out a 30-second TV ad. We could send out rich media. It actually, we love direct mail, but ultimately we were able to send out basically what we would send out in a direct mail piece, but we could get responses from people. And we'll be talking more about how that can have a really big impact for you in your campaign. But before we get into all of that, I'd like to let people know how you can actually join the conversation. So wherever you are on the internet, we're on 12 different streaming platforms. So if you're on Twitch, if you're on Twitter, if you're on Facebook, wherever you're at, please do join the conversation. If you have questions, if you have comments, if you have, whatever you want to say, you think we're all wet, you want to tell us, let us know. You can put it in the chat wherever you're at. You can leave a comment or question, and we will bring you into the conversation. And also, if you'd like to be a part of the conversation, the best way to do that is actually to text me at 202-918-3345. Again, that's text me at 202-918-3345, because we have a texting community. We have a lot of folks on here who we send out text personally. You can actually interact with us directly and ask us questions. We get questions throughout the day, but we also monitor that during the show, and we get a lot of questions and thoughts before the show and during the show. We actually let people know about an hour or two beforehand what we're going to be talking about, and it's really great. We get a lot of questions that we go ahead and make part of the show. So please do text us at 202-918-3345. But that's not the only way that you can get involved. You can also join us on our website. And Sean, I don't know if you've been to the website recently, but it's getting a lot more whiz-bang bells and whistles. And we have a great team of folks who are helping. We have all of our episodes on there now, which I'm not even quite sure how many that is. But have you seen it recently? It is really great.
Yeah, I was just checking it out, making sure that we're good and live for everybody there, and we are. And then,
so people go and watch live there.
Right there, and we're there and ready for you. So, yeah, I love that. What's really happened on the site is that you can really get connected with us. There's a lot of great quotes from folks that have shared in as well. So we really do appreciate that. And so, get some feedback from some other folks. And you, as you mentioned, our past episodes are now up there. So go check it out.
Yeah,
But
it's you can actually click on the different categories and find topics. I think we are approaching 150 episodes right now. We might be over that, and then we have articles. We have a few articles on fundraising and other items, communications. So highly recommend people check that out. And then also while you're there, sign up to be a Political Trade Secrets Insider. Get exclusive stuff. We send out emails fairly regularly now, and we'll be sending one out at least a week, but we let people know on Monday about the Clubhouse event that we did on the Clubhouse app, which was really quite remarkable. We had a lot of people, a lot of great. We had leaders from all different parts of the political spectrum. However, it turned out by the end we had mostly Republicans on there, conservative Republicans, people who'd been in the Trump administration, a lot of former military who are interested in running for office. So it was really a really awesome conversation between a lot of folks. We had a young fellow who was the head of a young America's Foundation, I think, club,
yeah,
and that's a conservative group. And really, he had a really great question about whether or not he should put that on his resume. And we're like, well, you know what? Don't be afraid of who you are. It was really a great thing. But you get that kind of stuff from being a Political Trade Secrets Insider. You get to be a part of those conversations. We had a couple of different podcast hosts also joining us for that conversation. Really a great job. Alex, who interns with us, set that up and was a really great job. So thank you to everybody who participated. But you can be a part of things like that by going to politicaltradesecrets.com, signing up to be a Political Trade Secrets Insider. And then, of course, as we said before, you can always text me at 202 918 3345 to get the freshest political trade secrets. We always put out notifications right before we do stuff like that there as well. So, Sean, how else, if somebody really is committed as a conservative out there or as an American to be the most effective citizen possible, but then also to unleash their political power by being a powerful political leader for their community, for their state, and for our country, what else can they do to set up their leadership?
well, you mentioned our intern Alex. We do have a great intern and fellows program that is one way to really become a more powerful political leader. Or if you're thinking about running for office or are running for office and want to take your campaign to the next level, we would love to have that conversation with you. So reach out to us at olsonstrategies.com. OLSON strategies.com. You can email me at Sean, SEAN, at olsonstrategies.com or Dustin at olsonstrategies.com. And we would love to set up that conversation with you today and see how we can work together to really make the impact you want on your community, the state, the country, and even the world.
Awesome. And thank you. I see some comments already coming in. So please do let us know if you have any thoughts or if you just want to say hello and howdy. We do appreciate your comments and questions. And I'm curious. A lot of folks out there have gotten a lot of text messages probably in the last year. And we're going to be talking about that more. Partly this whole section in a way is going to be sponsored by 10-cent texting. .com. So I'll just put that up so people know how to actually take action on political texting. And this is based on the 8 pro tips for political texting, which is available for download at 10centtexting.com. You can just go there and you can actually get the book that we're going to be talking about today if you want to do that. So throughout this program, if you have any questions, post them and we will bring that into the conversation. And it looks like Alex has already asked a question. Awesome topic. How can we as candidates be involved in texting with voters? I know that our campaign teams do most of it. Is there something particularly that we could do to help? Well, that is an excellent conversation or excellent
Yeah.
question, and we will bring it into this conversation. There's multiple things there that I think we can add some guidance on.
Yeah, and I would argue, I think you were saying the same thing, that there were actually 3 questions in there, even though there were 2 question marks. So, um, because I do think there is something around um, like who does it
Mm-hmm.
and what the campaign itself looks like, and we'll get into that a little bit too, because there are different options for
Mm-hmm.
what it is you want to do. And we mentioned this when we talk about things like signature gathering and other things like that. It's, do you want to be a texting operation which happens to be running for office, or do you want to run for office and then have texting that's happening as well?
Yeah.
So that's what happens there. Same with signature gathering. Campaigns are going to be deciding, oh, is this something that I can have volunteers and I can coordinate myself? Same with canvassing. Really, a lot of these operations where people don't generally think about it. Like, okay, well, there are great things about having these things in house, and there are some things to think about. Like, okay, well, do I really want to basically be an HR director of a mass group of volunteers when maybe there's another way to do this? So it's
Hmm.
just things to think about when you're setting up these types of operations. So, and
So there's a couple of things. So I got from the question is who does it, and then also it also is going to bring up another question that we're going to want to answer throughout this. There are different platforms, tincenttexting.com and tools like that. There's not too many like that, but there's a few like that that it's really a mass political texting platform that does it with FCC compliance, which we can talk about what that means in a moment. But you want to be able to be compliant, and it also allows for interaction, etc. And then there's going to be, what we use here on this program. We use there's a couple of different tools. We've had James Martin on with Rally, and we did a whole thing on political fundraising texting, which I highly recommend people check out that episode where we talked about that. And we use Community for our texting. So when you text me at the number that I have right here, you actually get to see. I would recommend people who are thinking about running for office to do this, to text me at 202-918-3345, because you can actually get to see how you could use texting as a candidate, where you have a personal interaction with people who are your closest supporters, your donors, your volunteers, if they're on your texting chain. The only candidate I see that who's really doing a good job at this right now is Sarah Huckabee Sanders. She has a cell phone that you can text and you can be a part of her community, and she sends out stuff every once in a while. So there's going to be different tools for different things. So this phone number, if you text me at this, you'll see how I use it as a way to talk with our community. Just as you might talk with your donors and your volunteers. That's one thing. And I can just send a message and it goes to everybody on my list. That's not legal if they're not on your list.
that's right.
So you have to have other tools for that. Then you might have a text bank, like an old phone bank. You have a text bank, and that's going to be a different service. And we've had Drew Ryan back in the fall. We had him on to talk about Campaign Sidekick, his software, his app that the Republican Party uses, and they have a texting text bank function on that where you have your volunteers do it, and that's a great tool for campaigns. It's not quite as interactive typically because you don't want your volunteers necessarily talking with voters long term on the texting app, and they can't, honestly. They have to be in the app to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. So some of those apps, they're great for getting the message out and creating a one-way communication,
Mm-hmm.
but there is a limit there. Most of them, though, I do understand some of them are starting to add in some rich media
Yep.
to that. But last cycle, I don't know that any of them that had the rich media and the the all volunteer component, like
Yeah.
both of those. So
It's
um,
important to have the rich media, and we're going to go into this because this is part of the 8 pro tips. So I don't know how you want to do this, Sean. If you want to go through
yeah,
the 8 pro tips, and then we'll go into them each individually, get
yeah,
some repetition in there for some message discipline.
absolutely. So I'm going to just read the 8 pro tips, and then we'll just kind of go through them. So I think that's kind of a great way to do it. Um, the know what motivates your target audience. Include a clear identifier.
Hmm.
And then you want to make sure your list includes key voter details. Um, keep your content simple. Have a clear call to action. Maximize your rich media, we were just talking about.
Mhm.
Have multiple people review your text. And then finally, take advantage of the opportunity to interact with your target voters. And so we'll go through those one by one. The first question that we typically get, though, is why texting? Like, why is this a tactic you want to use, right?
Mhm.
And we've had people ask that, right? And there's the book, and you can actually get that at 10centtexting.com. So it's the 8 ProTips for political texting, and you can go download that on there at 10centtexting.com. It's the free gift to you, so you can go check that out for anything that you're doing. It's shared. The intention is that it is there to make texting something that is more readily used well.
Yeah. And
Because
go ahead.
go ahead. Oh, I was just going to say that, and we want it to be used well because um, we want people to continue to open text, and we want them to find value in it. Um, and we get that that's something that we bring to this, because at the end of the day, it's great that they're getting delivered, but if they aren't having an impact,
Yeah.
well then,
We weren't too happy with, so it was by far the breakthrough tactic for the 2020 election cycle. And yet there were a lot of people doing it so poorly and so terribly, and they were spamming people with just crap. And what that's going to do is this is like being able to have direct mail, but it has a higher readership.
yeah,
So 82% of people will open every single text that comes to their phone. At least
yeah,
those are the numbers right now. That's really high. Like email at this point, we're at somewhere for campaigns, probably 9% to, if you're really fortunate, maybe in the high 20s. So
yeah,
that's how many people are actually um, opening your text. So 82% will open up your text, every single text that they receive to their phone. And then 90% of those people are going to open it up within 3 minutes. So if you time it right, if you do it right during the day, and you have, whether it's using volunteers, or if you're using something like 10centtexting.com, where the whole the call center, where we have live people, because a live person has to send out every single text to make it FCC compliant. They send out the text, and then we have people with ready to do frequently asked questions. So when someone says, "Who is this?" even though it says it in there, that's one of the pro tips.
yep,
Even though it says who it is, they can answer that. They might ask what party you're in. They might ask what your website is if they didn't see the link that you already sent, or what have you. But there's a real person. People are shocked when a real person responds, and it
absolutely.
can be so powerful. So when you do it well, and you send the rich media, and you send it with live person who's able to respond quickly, it can be this thing. It takes what would be somewhat like a direct mail message, and then it turns it into this way to get some interaction. So you could actually get feedback. You can even ask questions of your targeted group, and ask them what they think about something. You could never do that with a direct mail piece.
No. Well, and even if you did, think about the response loop. How long
Hmm.
does it take? Well, it
Yep.
takes, you design the piece, you mail the piece, and we love direct mail. I just want to say we like direct mail. It still is definitely an important tactic. So I just want to be clear on that. And the purpose of direct mail is not creating a feedback loop.
Hmm.
You're not going to get that, because what it takes is, you know, it's a week, if not more, to design the piece before it even gets out.
Hmm.
Then think about what it takes to get responses back. They either have to call or email, and generally hunt you down.
Yeah, and you can use a QR code or something like that. That's another way. You can have an email. Yeah, they have to take an action that's more than just simply replying to what's in front of them.
Exactly. And so
And it's going to be more expensive ultimately. That's one of the things that we're seeing with local races in particular. The ability to be very targeted, and one of the things that anybody you work with should be able to help you with getting a list. That's something that Tencent Texting does as well, to find the mobile phone numbers and do matches on your voter list. If you don't have a lot of mobile phones, being able to do a match and add that. But it's in the name, Tencent Texting. If you're being charged like anywhere in the 20s to 30s cents per text, then that's too much for this sort of texting. For the where someone handles it and they have a call center send out all the texts with a live person. If you're doing volunteers, the challenge that you have there is that you might have a day where 20 texts get sent, or you might have a day where 1,000 texts get sent. They get sent during the day whenever the volunteers can do it. And you may not have the ability to easily have a response mechanism. I'm hoping that the software is going to be updated such that you could have a campaign manager or have a key volunteer who's actually monitoring the responses back and is actually interacting with people. I think it's really important to have all the tools and systems have that, because that's the opportunity here. So those are just a couple of the thoughts I have about this. That this allows a local candidate to send out many messages and have some message discipline and be able to repeat their the issues and their argument for their election multiple times. And one thing that we're finding, we usually talk about the rule of 7, especially for direct mail. We like to do at least 7 or more mail pieces. The truth is, on text messages, we're finding that if you have a really a, a message that's going to cut through, it has some rich media, that you don't actually have to do as many text messages for it to start to have an impact. Maybe 3 messages is going to catch on or cut through that. So, Sean, if you'd like to, I think we got a couple questions also, or comments.
Yeah, go ahead and if you want to
bring this up. So Pat says, I like the way you use inserting rich media for voter contact, but looking back at the run-up and post-election day, what would you say about the Trump fundraising texting strategy, and how much is too much? So this might be the perfect case. I wish somebody could get in front of him. I honestly think if he used a tool like, frankly, like what James Martin has, and we've talked with him a little bit with Rally, or using a community type of a function where you have people who opt into your texting, and it was actually the president himself could just like I do, for if you text me right now at this number, I will be able to text you back. You will get real text from me. I will actually be a text from me, and you it's me, or possibly Sean will send a text, and that's really, like, it's an actual conversation. I think if the president used something like that, it would just blow people away, as opposed to sending 20, 30, 50 texts a day to somebody. I don't even pay attention to that. That's the one text that I don't really pay attention to anymore. I like some of them, and I've learned a lot from them. The way they use capital letters is excellent.
Yeah.
I mean, you can learn a lot from it. I do think it's quite a bit, but clearly they're bringing in money.
Yeah, but I think that's a great question, and it's interesting that you brought that up, Pat, because I was actually just at a meeting yesterday, and somebody was saying something about, I'm still getting texts from Donald Trump, and, and it is where this is another instance, though, where we're talking about, if you make these things more interactive, then it's going to lessen, like, oh man, I'm getting so many of these. Like, if it's something that I can look at and know that if I respond, I can get a response back. Like, somebody is like, there's going to be some sort of response. If it deems a response, well then I'm gonna be a little less upset about getting them, or a little more likely to actually read them.
Yeah.
And so,
and I don't know that people are necessarily upset. I think they just have started tuning it out.
yeah.
This is where rich media would really make a difference. I think honestly, I don't know I actually do know a few of the people who are involved in what platform they're using. I've talked with them about it. We actually talked to them about using stuff for us before we were using instant texting. One, it was a lot more expensive, like ridiculously more expensive, and it wasn't as effective. And honestly, what we've found when you actually get into the technical side of it on the back end, it's actually cheaper and you have more characters that you can send typically if you're using rich media. That's typically for most of the systems that they're available, and how the back end of all this works. You should be able to. It depends on what a company decides to do, but you should be able to actually send more characters in a text, and it should be a little bit cheaper ultimately if you're using rich media. It just is set up that way. So I highly recommend using rich media. Most of the platforms right now are not able to do that, and I think that's a real loss, honestly.
Yeah, so let's say it's so we're big supporters of using rich media and telling a story with pictures and with GIFs, short videos, really taking advantage of everything that you can, because it is something that can help you break through. And if you
And
are
so I'm not ignoring you right now. I'm going to
good,
pull up an example.
you're good. And if you are sending the traditional text, the SMS text, as it were, you want to make sure that you are using these other tips. Actually, they become even more critical,
Hmm.
because it is the only thing, like when they open it, it's the only thing that might draw them in. Is you're going to have to get them focused on a few words quickly, or a link quickly, um, or you don't stand a chance. So,
So this is an example. This is a GIF that being sent to somebody.
yep,
This is actually, I got this directly from Tencent Texting, or
yep,
from Grassfire actually.
yep,
So Grassfire is actually, as we said, they fuel Tencent Texting. But you see the GIF. This is going directly to someone's phone. This is actually on their phone, and it has all the information. So you get a picture, and then you can imagine getting the actual text, and then it has all the information you need through here, which makes it credible. It actually tells you, and then it has a link and it has a phone number. So one of the things so as we go through the 8 pro tips, let's go to the first the
yeah,
first of the pro tips. Let's talk about that.
yeah, and getting some great additional feedback on what we've been talking about so far. So
Hmm.
really appreciate that, and we'll be bringing that in. So, look, I think this is one of the most important things. These are all important, but know what motivates your target audience. Again, look, if it's not relevant to them, and you've got about maybe half a second for people to decide if it's going to be relevant for them or not, uh, then they're not going to read any more of it, um, or open it. They might kind of look at it. You get the preview and you go, okay, well, that's something I can deal with later, or whatever it is. But you want to make sure that what you're talking about motivates your target audience. So you want to speak to the recipients and their concerns. Um, and I argue that this is where a successful texting campaign begins and ends.
Hmm.
Um, you generally, in campaigns, hopefully you've spent a lot of time, if you've been paying attention to things like the Olson strategy, sweet spot, and some other things we've talked about here. You've been spending a lot of time on voters' concerns.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to me. People who do spend time, they spend a lot of money on that, and then they get to texting and they go, okay, well, I'm going to just shoot this thing out, and I don't need to be very focused on it, and focused on it delivering what it is that you want the recipient to get out of it,
Yeah.
and putting them at the front of it. That's the thing that makes a difference. So when we talk about this, um, things that can help with that is being conversational.
Mhm.
Uh, and think about it, like, no kidding, you're sending a text message.
Yeah.
You know,
Sometimes it might make sense to even just send a text message to someone on your campaign, or to your spouse or somebody, and say, "Hey, this is this," and just say like what you want to say to them and send it. And that could be the basis of it. The thing is, if you try to get into writing it perfectly and having it sound like oh, I don't know, like a thesis or something, it's not going to work. You
yeah,
want it to actually sound like it's coming from somebody like a real person. That's part of the overall with the 8 pro tips is that it wants to be verifiably true. Like this
Yeah.
is a real person. These are real people. That's going to have it be more effective content.
Yeah, and this is really the difference between some of the other modes
Hmm.
and of the tactics that you'll use and texting, because texting is a personal thing. It is something that people get. You really can't get closer to the voter right now. I mean, in the world of a pandemic, this is really as close to the voter you get. They're carrying this around in their pocket or their purse or wherever they're keeping their phone. So you're right there. So
Yeah.
you want to be mindful of that.
I like this from Pat. Cheaper focus group with real people. It is very much the case. And if you don't know exactly what motivates your voters, you can actually ask them from
Yeah,
this. And you can also do one of the things that the Grassfire does is it does text to web. It does text to web surveys as well. I love this. Preston F. This is a real voter on here. I appreciate you taking the time to ask me for my vote. You got it, voted today, and you were my choice. So this is a get out the vote text that went out to a campaign in the 2020 election cycle. And when it went out, got a bunch of responses back. People were in the actual process of going to the polls on early voting, and they got the message. They got, I think in this case, maybe a TV ad that was sent to them directly, and they were able to watch it, and they got the message, and they're like, "This is awesome! I didn't know what I was going to do," and it definitely added votes to the candidate who sent this
yeah.
message.
And we've heard it before. There's stories that go back decades, right? George W. Bush lost his first election. He's talking to his neighbor, and he's like, "I can't believe I lost." And she's like, "Well, I didn't vote for you." And he said,
Hmm.
"What?" And she goes, "Well, you didn't ask me. You didn't ask me to." So,
Hmm.
look, people want to be asked to take action, and we'll get into that a little more here in a minute. But this is something that can really come out of it and get to what matters to your target audience. Um, Next is include a clear identifier. People want to know who the text is from, and in capitalization or saying or having your name in there multiple times is going to make a difference. And the and even with that, now just people are going to read whatever they're going to read when they get it, and some are going to still ask you who is this.
Hmm.
But for a lot of people, they're going to say okay, and I got it or whatever. And we'll get into the call to action in a minute. But whatever it is, they're going to be able to clearly articulate it to whoever is asking, and they're going to say, we've seen it. People, it's clear who the text is from, and it's from a candidate, and they get text back saying, "I went to high school with you. I'm going to vote
Hmm.
for you," or whatever, and it's really great. We've got some great examples here of how to do this. So one is straightforward, making it clear what your name is and what you're asking. It's all right there in the beginning, your name, and I'm asking you to vote on November 3rd to whatever
By the way,
the
I think this is one of the things that the Trump campaign in particular did really well. The RNC, I guess, is taking this on. Actually, I don't see them doing it as much, but they had from the same phone number or from the same platform, they're sending all these different messages, but they would create the sense, and this is actually something you should do with your email too, is have lots of different voices that are saying, similar things. If you have a campaign chairman and you have maybe a finance chair, or you have even different characters on the campaign, it gives you a sense of like actually knowing this group of people. The finance director sends something, the communications director sends something, the political director, maybe the field guy, or heck, even maybe the guy who drives the candidate, talks about the day they spent. So you could use this on email or you can use this on text, and you can give your supporters. This is if you're talking about your donors and your volunteers. You can give them a sense of being a part of the campaign and doing it this way. You can also, if you're talking to voters, and this is a get out the vote, or it's you're trying to persuade people, you could have a text go out from someone who's prominent in the community. and then you can have a text go out from the candidate and so on and so forth. So in this case, where it has your name, as in like Bob Smith, I'm asking for your vote today on November 3rd. So we like to use capitals. That's really one of the only ways. Sometimes you can kind of add a little bit more design elements to it, but ultimately capitals are going to be the thing that you use to give it a little bit more attention, and
Well,
that's really important.
and you mentioned emails earlier, and so clear identifiers there too. That's where you use underlining and bolding and highlighting and some other things that email allows to be
Mhm.
able to try to break through and make it very clear, because you get a short amount of time with folks. You want to make sure that you're drawing them to where they need and where you want them to go.
Yeah, and if you can give spaces, like if you can do one sentence space space, another sentence space space, and have it actually be a little bit more space that it takes up. What you're ultimately doing when you're writing email or you're writing text is you're trying to write quickly and have it easily consumed, which is why a GIF is really great, because you can have message, then a new frame, message, new frame, message, and it can just be like a couple words, and it's easy to read, easy to consume. I like this one, the second one. I'm Ann from organization name, so I'm Ann from, you know, the Republican Party, asking you to vote for candidate X on such and such. So this is a case of a volunteer, possibly is the voice, a real volunteer, but they say yes, you can use my name, and we'll send it out. And that has it be very conversational, and also makes it very clear that it's from Ann from this organization asking you to vote for this candidate. That's a really great way to do that, so that um, all that information's real, and you know that you're real, but the people on the other end don't know it, and so you want to do things that make it clear that if they wanted to go and follow up, they could find out who actually sent this text message, and that is going to have it have a lot more credibility with people.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think so. You really want to really be tapping into that. So that this idea of making it clear who it's from, um, because think about when you look at text. Otherwise, you almost always know who it's from,
Mhm.
and so there is something. They're not going to have whatever phone number your text is coming from stored in their phone. So you have a job to do, that when you send a text to somebody that you already know and is in your phone, you don't have to do.
Mhm.
Like, you don't text your wife or husband and say, "Hey, it's your husband," and then go into it. It's because that's not a necessary function.
So
Uh,
one of the things that's really helpful for this, and you saw this when we talked with James from Rally, and then also we do this. If you text me at this number, you're going to see how this works. So if you text me at 202-918-3345. Again, that's 202-918-3345. So if you're using this kind of platform, I want to be clear, there's three different platforms. There's the kind of personal relationship with your donors and supporters tool, which is what you're going to get when you text me at this number, 202-918-3345. That's going to get you into that kind of a platform. That's what you'd want to use for, it's the kind of thing you'd use for donors and you'd use for volunteers to have them be a part of it. It doesn't require a human besides me sending. I don't have to send to every single person on the list. I can just send to my contact list, and it goes to everybody. It's directly for me, and then you can respond back to me, and I can have a one-on-one conversation with you. But I'm sending it to everybody when I send something out. That's not legal to do to people who have not opted in. So when you text this number, you're going to get a text back. It's going to give you a link. It's going to have you opt in so that it makes everything copacetic and legal, and the FCC is happy. Then what it's going to do, it's also going to give you my V card. So you will actually be able to have the virtual card, and you'll be able to know, you can have me in your phone, and you know who it is you're getting a text from now on. So that's going to help with delivery and everything else going forward. People are more likely to know who the messages are from. So that's on this platform. Then when it comes to the like tencenttexting.com, then you don't have that because you're going to be texting voters who have not opted in. You're having an individual in the call center who's sending each and every single text one on one to these folks. They will need to have these identifiers like we have described here,
Yep.
and that's going to build the credibility of it. And same thing if you have it for the volunteer text bank, which is using something like Campaign Sidekick, where you have people using the app to send out the text on their own time when they can do it. And that's going to be important to have those messages say who these folks are as well. All right. Do you want to go to the next one?
Yeah. So sorry here. I am frozen. So,
Yeah, don't worry. We can see you. You're actually moving around, so
oh,
no worries. And I
okay.
also want to point out that we had I would love to blame big tech earlier when we had problems and we had to restart, but that was all on me. So I just hit the wrong button on something. So here we are at the pro tip 3.
Yeah.
Make sure your list includes key voter details.
Yeah. So the
So let's
important
go in that.
Yeah, the important thing here is you want to know when who you're communicating with, and you want it to be easy to identify people when they text or call back.
Hmm.
Um, this is something that if it's not done well, you're going to have text back, and you're not going to know who you think it's supposed to be, or who it is, depending on your list and whatnot. So you want to make sure that you've got a real idea of that. Um, and so, first and last name, address, those types of things. You want to actually have that in the system so that you can easily do it. Because some people might say, "Hey, get me a yard sign,"
Hmm.
and then then you can text back, "Oh, is your address blank?" And then they confirm it and say, "Okay, great." Um, and it really goes to that personal connection that you've created with them. Or so there's going to be stuff like that, and you're going to want that to be very easy.
Yep.
So, that's why we say that, and I think that's pretty straightforward. But name, address, address. You want to make sure that you have the mobile number, um, and any of those things, so that you can really create that.
A
Uh,
couple of things I would put on this as a as part of why this is so important. If you have good voter information, beyond being able to respond back and make it clear that you know who they are, it is also important. We look at this. I would say suspect um, processes that are happening in Georgia, in particular in the runoff. Um, Going up to January 5th in the Georgia runoff, there were a lot of organizations that were texting people about voting. And this goes to one of the things that reduces credibility about the elections is that what was happening is you had these organizations texting people and telling them to sign up to get an absentee ballot, and then they would they'd be texting everybody, but they were hitting people who were in Alabama, maybe Florida, North Carolina, South Carolina, and that really does reduce the credibility of an election when you're asking people outside of a state who can't legally vote to text. And I don't think that there's anything necessarily nefarious going on there. However, I think what was going on is they just had bad data and they were sending messages to people who weren't actually in their state and weren't actually in their district and so on and so forth. And one, you're wasting money. And then two, you're causing confusion in an election. And you have to be really careful about this. If you're going to be sending get out the vote information to people and you're using this is kind of like, in some ways it's dangerous if you don't have professionals who are helping you do this. If you send out a mass communications with bad voting information, there will be problems with that, and there might be actual consequences to that. It could even lose your election for you if you're sending your people the wrong information, and there's possibility that there could be legal action that could be taken as well. So having your list have key voter details, having your list be clean and actually the correct people is really, really important for you to be successful here. You're not just texting anybody. Next one, pro tip 4: keep your content simple. And Sean's going to be back in a minute. His computer is restarting, so we both have had our own issues that we've caused today for ourselves. And it looks like he's back. All right, Sean, welcome back. And I was just pointing out that and this is the one time where it wasn't actually the big tech overlords who were
Yeah,
causing us problems. It's our own issues.
yeah, exactly. Man alive, but glad to be
We're moving to pro tip 4, and keep your
perfect.
content simple. This is a really important one. You want to get a lot of stuff in there, and I know almost everybody goes up against the character limit every single time,
Yep.
and that's okay as long as you keep it straightforward, simple, and you focus on the message. So here, why don't you just go through some
Yeah,
of this? I don't know if you have it in front of you, but
I do.
um,
Look, so um, you as you mentioned, at least on our platform, you only have 320 characters to deliver your message as far as the actual text of the message. So look, you don't need full sentences. You just need to be clear, concise, and you can use common and well-known abbreviations. Okay.
mhm.
Um, so and then we're able to actually add in that opt-in message, so you don't have to worry about that. But a lot of folks don't, so we actually created what a sample one could look like right here
Mhm.
for you. Um, but again, you want to just be clear. John Smith. I'm asking for your vote on November 3rd to defend our values in Congress. Um,
And
you
here,
know,
of course, if you were actually sending a real text message, you might actually say what the values are, like what it is that you are. You'd actually be a little bit more um, specific. But since this is a generic one, that's why we're a little bit generic here.
Exactly. And so then you might say, the opponent's name opposes X, Y, and Z, and lay out those issues, because it's going to also tell you the values you're defending another way.
Hmm.
Get to that point. The choice is clear. Vote for me. Your name in there again on November 3rd to protect our rights, and then visit my website to learn more. So it's pretty straightforward when it comes to
Hmm.
that, in a way that can deliver the message you want to get out. It's there. You got the election date in there, you got the contrast in there, and you did it, and you gave them a place to go learn more.
One thing I think is so here. We also make the argument the average voter receives 1,216 emails per month and only 178 text filters or text messages with no spam filters. So you have the ability to go and really get directly in front of a voter. Now, this is also why we are being so clear that we need to elevate. If you want to be a political leader who can actually have these direct and interactive communications with your voters, and I will tell you, I thought it was going to be something that would tick people off. People like it. We have a number of responses in here that the pro tip book that are from real voters, and they really appreciate it. If it's actually relevant to people, it's providing good information, and it speaks to what matters to them, and you have somebody who responds, even if it's a negative response back to you, a real person responds, it really diffuses the system. It really diffuses the upset quickly, because they're used to emails and everything else that are impersonal. But if you have someone standing at the ready and they respond back and say, you're a terrible person, I hate text, whatever, and you say, oh, I'm so sorry, is your response, and then they will oftentimes apologize to you for
Yeah,
having said something not nice.
yeah.
Which is that something we see in politics anywhere else? I don't think so.
No. Well, and it's a great point, because not only does it diffuse the situation, it goes from this is spam sent from a stranger to, oh my gosh, there's a real person on the other end.
Hmm.
And your the we talk about context. The context for the person on the other end changes. Like,
Hmm.
oh, even if I was upset about that, I'm I'm going to take different actions around it. So, which I think is very helpful, and could be helping the next time you're sending a text too, not just to that person, but beyond.
Mm-hmm.
Which goes to pro tip 5, which is have a clear call to action. One thing we've talked about here is the clear call to action could be vote by November 3rd, like using the last election.
Mm-hmm.
But it could also be, return your absentee ballot, or it could be early voting starting. Go vote now.
Or it could be answer this question. Like you
Yeah,
pose a question and all they have to do is answer back what their thoughts are. Or if you are, maybe you're in the local, I got Robert's question about what kind of content works down ballot. If you are running in a city council race, perhaps, and you don't have that many people, maybe you only have 5,000 mobile phones in your area, you could have it come from the candidate, say, hey, this is, Robert, and I'm running for city council, and I really care about district or ward, whatever. And I'm have my plans on transportation or whatever. What are your thoughts? Where are the areas in our ward that you think need some attention? You know, and then you just ask the question, and then you actually will. So Grassfire, who provides instant texting, has a back end where the candidate or the campaign manager, whoever, can actually just be there on the website, and they can watch the messages come back in, and they can reply. So you could actually, as a local candidate, have these personal conversations with somebody
yeah,
that you want to. So that's a really great way to do it. You can also have them call you. You can say, "I would love to talk to you about X, Y, or Z. Feel free to call me back on this number," or you can put a phone number in the actual text. The truth is, and on the text I just showed you guys a minute ago, that had a phone number in it. The way it works with a phone, it's we all use phones, so we all know how phones work. But the way it works is if you have a phone number
yep.
there at the bottom, all you have to do is click it.
Well, and the amazing thing about that text, Dustin, is that it also, if you actually just called back the phone number,
Mm-hmm.
that was directed to a phone number. So if you called it now, I'd show people that I'm getting a call from you because
Yeah,
the one who's getting this call back. So it is something that simple that can be done that people can go, oh, okay, that's how. And if they call that number back and you as a candidate or the campaign manager answers the phone, they're gonna they're gonna be gobsmacked, really. Oh
exactly.
my god.
You'd be shocked. And the way it works is if you want to not like hit 100,000 people quickly with a text message and have all the calls back, it can be throttled such that, you know, 500, this day, 500 next day, or something like that. You can have it be trickled out over time so that you don't get inundated. I think about 5,000 text messages, you're going to start getting a handful of calls back, and it's a really great way to have great interactions with people. It is also very helpful. I highly recommend this for conventions. If you're in a convention, one of the things about conventions, in a convention, you have to want to make sure that your artwork is going to be smaller because it's going to have to all go through the same cell towers to get to people's phones. However, you can give people information directly in the convention center typically. So that is, I've seen that actually really win conventions where we've been able to get information out. Um,
Yep.
so that's those are a couple of the thoughts. But the clear call to action, there's so many ways to do it. You again, where you can have a phone number in there, you could actually, as a grassroots advocacy organization, or let's say you're doing the public affairs campaign, you could have a call to action of you send a message to everybody in a district who cares about some issue and say you need to call state senator so and so and let him or her know that this is you need to vote against this piece of legislation, and then people and just click this number and call them now, and
Yeah.
then they call them, and there you go. And it's going to be I don't know if it's quite been figured out how to track that, but the main thing is you're going to get people to take action and to actually connect with their state legislator. It's a great way to do grassroots advocacy as well. The call to action here. This is what's different about texting from, say, a piece of mail, is it's going to be so much faster and so much more impactful. And because 82% of people open every single text and they do it within 3 minutes, 90% of them do it within 3 minutes. If you need to kill a piece of legislation, this is probably the fastest, quickest way to get calls going to a state legislator or whatever quickly and letting people know.
Absolutely. People say, "What can I do?" Or organizations say, "What can we do to get the word out?" Well, there you go. There's a way to get right to people.
I,
Uh,
I
but
love this quote right here. This is funny. So this is the kind of stuff that you get back. I mean, you get your typical middle finger emoji from a few people. 5% of people are just angry all the time. So
yep,
you have to realize that. Same thing if you do an automated phone call, you do live calls, you're going to have some people who are angry. But Nancy A says, this is a real person. I voted for you and recommended you to all my family. Don't let us down. Counting on you. Have faith that you will walk the walk and talk the talk. That is from a text message that elicited that response. That is remarkable to me. These are the kinds of things that had me go from a skeptic to a believer that this was the new interactive tool that was going to make the difference in campaigns. Because I've never had any kind of message like that to an email, really. I've
no,
never had that to a direct mail piece. How would I know with a direct mail piece? Certainly, maybe your supporters will let you know about your TV ads that they really like them. But I don't just have a voter usually call back and let you know that. They have to come to you through another means anyway to let you know that. So
exactly.
these are the kinds of things you're going to get if you're doing a good text message with good media, with a good message that's actually speaking to what matters to them. This is the kind of stuff that you'll get as a response.
Yeah. Well, and I'm glad you're showing this one. So maximize your rich media. Hey, it said a picture's worth 1,000 words, right? So you want to let your artwork tell the story. And this is where people's eyes and attention are drawn. And, we've sent text to people before and say, okay, well, what do you think of the text? And they go, hang on, I'm still watching the video or the GIF. And, and then they say, I'll read that later.
Mm-hmm.
And get that. Like, it is possible that the only thing people are going to get is your image or your GIF. So you want to maximize it, and make it something that grabs their attention. And so, really take advantage of that.
I think
And
a lot of platforms initially didn't. So this is the biggest differentiator, I think, for Tencent texting, is that most of the platforms did not start with using, uh, with providing the ability to have rich media. And they made a decision. I don't know why, but they made a decision because they thought maybe people wouldn't think it's a real person. Well, I don't know about you. I sometimes will send a GIF is my only response to a text chain that I'm on, or someone sends me a message and I send an emoji back. I mean, that's oftentimes all my communications is all visual, and that's it. Like I don't, or if you have a family text, people send a picture. They don't send anything with the picture. They just send a picture. So I think people are used to this as a way to communicate at this point, and it does have it be personal, and it does have it cut through. I say the GIF is by far the best because it automatically starts playing in somebody's text messages. Unless they have an old flip phone, they're going to be getting the text and it's going to immediately start showing the GIF. A couple of pro tips just on this one. I recommend the GIF over all the other ones. However, a video, if you have a TV ad that you can't get to enough people, being able to send it to 60,000 mobile phones in your district, if you're running for Congress, there's a lot of people who would never have seen your ad had you not texted it to them. They're going to have to hit the play button on that case, but
yeah,
that's still going to be a really great way to do it. Um, or you can use the GIF. The GIF, it's really important to give enough time for each of the slides, in my opinion, so that people can see that. Also, You want to use big letters, and you can, since you have a GIF, you have multiple sides, you can have it be short, succinct sentences that tell your message. And as long as you keep the GIF is actually typically going to be one of the largest files. It'll actually be larger than your video. Oftentimes, you do need to be careful not to use too many different kinds of videos and things like that inside of the GIF. You want to use still pictures as much as possible. So I don't know if that makes sense, but for the graphic designers out there, they will understand that. Sean, what are some of the other thoughts? There is a limit on how much you can
Yep.
actually send.
And so you want to remember it is a text. I mean, you're working with something this size, right? So that's all you got. So you just want to make sure that when you're doing that, that you get like, okay, the image is going to be smaller, not just in size, but what you're creating is going to be smaller. Um, so you get to say a few words, not a bunch of text in there, and that's why the text underneath gets to elaborate on the story. So you have it like, no kidding, the 1 or 2 or 3 points, depending on how the GIF's put out, like that can be said in 2, 3, 4, a handful of words, is along with your images, is what gets put in a GIF or a still image, or your video will tell whatever the story is there. Then
You
it's what.
ultimately want that if someone only looks at the image, they get the point, or
Yep,
the GIF, or if they only look at the text, they get the point.
yep,
Both of them need to do enough of the job that they're going to get the point if they just see
exactly.
whatever it is. I would use the old rule that we use for uh, direct mail, which is the 6 second rule.
Yep,
The 6 seconds that they're walking to the garbage can, that they see your beautiful mailer that you spent so much time and money on. They look at it, they get the message, and they drop it in the trash.
yep. Yeah,
Even if they tried not to get the message, they still
yep,
got it.
exactly. And so that's what we're going that's what we're talking about here, and that's why it's such an important pro tip. Going to the seventh pro tip, which is
Well, real quick on that. So 600 kilobytes is typically the limit if you're sending it over text to
yeah,
actually have it show up in their message. So that's important. On a GIF or a picture or whatnot, since it's on the phone, you don't have to have it be a really large dimensions. So you can have it be a square. It can be different shapes. It doesn't really matter, but I recommend a square typically is what I think works, or something that more looks kind of like a letterbox,
yeah.
more like a movie would.
And,
That might be a way to do it. So 250 by 250, 400 by 400 pixels is about what you're going to want to be in.
and
If you need to make it smaller, you could even go down to 200 by 200.
yeah, and the truth is that's a good point. The um, Even if you could, even if platforms necessarily let it be bigger than that size wise, in kilobyte size, the the carriers are going to start blocking those once you get. So as that size gets more and more, it's gonna become
It's going to
more
have
difficult.
deliverability
Yeah,
issues, is what we
yeah,
call it.
yeah. So you just want to be mindful of that, and it's something we try to. Uh, that's that happy medium where
Hmm.
most are still going to get delivered, and you can get maximum quality. So good point there. So you want to have multiple people review your text. You know, and this isn't just for grammatical issues, but you should do that, by the way. Uh, but it's also how the text can land with other people, like how it's received. Um, and look, we really, as humans, we don't really do necessarily do a great job of determining how things are going to be received by other people.
Hmm.
So really getting to a few different people that have some different perspectives, but are in or have the makeup of your target recipients. You want to be clear on that. Um, that's going to make
It
a
is very possible that so this is one of the things that's going to be happening when you send a text is you have to be really straightforward and you have to keep it simple. You have to be very direct. Now, one of the things, this is how it works where people don't think about how it lands with somebody else, how they're going to take it, is you know all the context that you know. You know all the things that you know. You have the background information. You have all the things that you know about it. Maybe you're an expert on an issue. And all that's there when you read your own text or when you see your own picture. Like all that stuff is informing your filter for how you're getting that information. There's a lot of stuff that it's drawing upon, if that makes sense. When you send it to somebody who has no context for this whatsoever, the message might come across completely different to them. They may hear and see something that is not what you intended. It might even be offensive to them because they don't have the same context that you have. So if there's some missing context, you might have to add that in. You might even have to further simplify your message in order to provide the information that you need to make it make sense for somebody who might not have any frame of reference that you have.
Yeah, yeah, that's a key point.
And
And
by the way, that is like a pro tip for everything, for any
that's
kind of
right.
communication. If you don't realize that you're not normal, that's one of the best pieces of advice I ever got was you're not normal.
Yeah,
You pay attention to this stuff. This is stuff that you like. You're interested in politics. That's you're not normal. So just keep that in the back of your mind.
yeah, and so that's a good point. We mentioned on the show yesterday, it used to be that the average person spent 8 minutes a year on politics.
Hmm.
And if you're listening to us, you're watching us, I can guarantee that you spend more than 8 hours a year on politics. So you're already beyond that. And so you just want to get like whatever might be going on with you is going to be different than how it could be received by someone else. So you just want to get some different perspectives so that you've got that before you send. So,
Hmm.
and then this perhaps we saved the best for last here, Dustin. It's take advantage of the opportunity and to interact with your target voters. This is so underused.
Hmm.
This ability.
And I would even suggest that not taking the opportunity to do this is what will make it in 2, 3 years, 4 years. It'll make this no longer a viable tool.
No.
If we have campaigns that aren't actually interacting, if it's just spamming people, there's no real interaction with people from the text messages. That's a good way to take an amazing tool that can really connect people and turning it to trash.
Yeah.
So if you are just sending stuff out with no way to interact with your voters when they respond back, you are doing yourself long-term harm as an ability to be a political leader and communicate with your audience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know, so, like some people that use this, they decide, hey, you know what, I'm going to call back folks, if it's a small number of people, like they want to have, like, no kidding, I want you to know that there's a real voice and real person here. So that's how some people do it. Others do it the way we talked about, having some responses from the candidate or a key person themselves logging in to do it, or saying, "Hey, you know what? We know we're going to get a lot of responses. We want to get back to people quickly,"
Mhm.
and so they really set up, what's believed to be frequently asked questions, and it gets responded by a team of our folks that are skilled and crafted at being able to craft the messages that need to be sent. And
Honestly, I would say that it's probably three questions that people ask any given time. Anytime there's a campaign out there, there's like three questions. One is who are you? Even though you said it in the thing, this is why it's so important to be so clear. But still, even if you're like say it a couple times, this is who I am. They say, who is this? And you get to respond, I'm so and so. You get to message them again,
yep,
and then next thing is, what party are you? Um, and then you get to respond to that, or when's the election, and you get to respond to that, or how can I help? That's one of the questions that they ask, and then you can send the website with a way to raise money. This is by being interactive. There was a campaign that we were involved in the fall. It was a get out the vote message. For a district, to be quite honest, this candidate didn't really have a shot to win. But the message goes out, and our team was highly responsive, and using the tools of 10-cent texting and being able to use it to actually interact with people, and raised $20,000 for the candidate off of one get out the vote text. The text had nothing to do with fundraising. However, people were like, "How can I help? I want to help," and by providing them with the website and saying you can donate, raise another 20,000, which then went into further messaging to voters. This is the unique nature of texting. It is the kind of what makes it a secret weapon, that you can actually have this interaction. If you're leaving that on the table, then you're missing out ultimately. I got a lot of messages from folks who are getting, in particular with the Senate campaigns, the U.S. Senate campaigns, they were in particular terrible at this last election cycle, where they'd send out these broadcast text messages, or they would have the text phone banks going, and they would just be these black holes. People would respond. They would ask questions. It was just nothing, absolutely nothing. And we got a lot of people responding to us and letting us know that, like, this is, it's really frustrating when they pretend like they're a real person and then you respond to them and it's not a real person. That is extra frustrating.
Yeah, it's a great point, and this really is your opportunity to take texting from a one-way conversation, which is a lot of the communication, and particularly in the mass communication, that a lot of them are TV, radio, mail. They're all one-way communications. They're all one-way conversations, where this can become a two-way conversation.
Yep.
And it has the ability to do that all the way along. So really, you want to do that, and it gives you an opportunity to get connected, to actually ask questions. I mean, people love to tell you their opinion if they're asked, and so you get an opportunity to do that and let them share. And you can do that. You can elicit some feedback, and we mentioned earlier, people are shocked and appreciative when they receive a response.
Yep. Pat has a couple of great comments here. He mentioned, I think we already mentioned this one, cheaper focus group with real people. Yep. If you ask a question, you can get that back from folks. That's excellent. He also says, I think you can use it to scale, which is true. You can use it from local all the way to presidential. It's all about the personal touch. It's a different example, but I like to sit on a Saturday when a robocall goes out and talk to them. Or like a teletown hall, probably. And then this other comment, on a smaller campaign, it's great. Sean is right about diffusing the situation. Being personable goes a long way. It really doesn't take much to diffuse somebody who might be upset with the message. You don't get to do that with an automated phone call. It's just not something you get to do very often, is really diffuse the situation. So you can really make a difference with folks.
Yeah, and that's a good point about the automated phone calls. Generally, the only way they can do that is if they listen all the way to the end, get the phone number, write it down, call you back to tell you how terrible you are for calling them. And all they did was sit there for 30 or 45 seconds just waiting so that they could get the message and write down the number and tell you what they thought about the idea of getting it.
And the truth is that there are going to be people who want to do that no matter what. They're actually sitting there at their table waiting for the phone call to come in so they can call them back.
Yep.
They love to do it. There's certain people. So if you get the negative responses, don't think you just blew up the world and somehow you caused a problem. You will always have those responses. That's one of the biggest challenges you have with candidates, is they can't handle any one person to a message that goes out to 1,000, 10,000, 50,000, 100,000 people, and one or maybe a half dozen people or maybe 24 people respond. We're talking about infinitesimal percentage of those people who receive the message. And if there's more than one person, they flip out and they just melt. And that is, it's really quite pathetic, honestly. Okay, so, but it's also understandable to get that. This is another favorite quote. This is from a real person. Well, as serious as a heart attack, I was not going to vote. I think y'all are crooked as dogs' hind legs. But when you responded to my text, I just went and voted for you.
It,
That's that. I don't think Jeff could have said it any better than that.
yeah, and it is the thing. The the response. I mean, this guy was dead set on not voting. Not even like not voting for you, just not voting at all. And uh, you might guess that his initial reply back was not the friendliest reply.
Yes.
And you see what it turned into. So I think that is so great, and I'm glad you shared that. Some additional points, and we've kind of talked about this, but want to really be clear about it. Be conversational.
Mm-hmm.
This is a text message. Have some fun with it if it's appropriate and possible. It really, of course, depends on the topic and what you're doing, and then be interesting. No matter what, you want to be interesting. So
yeah, exactly. I might be able to pull up one of the fun ones with a GIF. You can really actually have fun.
Yeah. Well, I know that so it's interesting. Prospective clients say, okay, so what does this really look like? And it can be hard to kind of grasp what it would look like on your phone. And so I know we did one.
Here's one I have. This is Abraham Lincoln with sunglasses, and he's saying, "Not texting voters is so 7 years ago." So
Yeah.
that's an example. You can have fun with a GIF if you do something funny and fun. By the way, people are going to be extra forgiving. There's one with George Washington
Yeah.
holding his cell phone. And he
And
says, it's far better to text a voter than to assume you know than to assume they know who you are. George Washington
and
probably would say today.
and you probably don't have it on your phone, but we did do a mock-up of a get out the vote text for Rick Astley.
Yeah, Rick Astley, that was a good one.
And we made sure that we got out all of his campaign promises, that he was never going to give you up. He was never going to let you down. He was never going to run around and hurt you. So and look, you can have some fun with it. Like, oh yeah, okay. And I apologize if that song's going to be stuck in your head all day, but that's
Don't worry, I do have it on my phone. This is Rick Astley telling you that he's never going to let you down.
Yeah,
So
it's so great, and so it draws your attention. You get to have some fun with it, and it's a way to get connected with people. And yep, that is exactly what makes it possible. It's very clear in the image. You go in there, it has Rick Astley right there, the capitalized at the top, so you know who it's from, and it kind of goes through the lyrics and ask for your vote. So that's it can be that simple for folks, and you get to have a little fun with it. So
yeah, and Pat says bringing levity to all of this works. It really is a lot more fun. I honestly think if there's somebody who could do this and could have done it more is Donald Trump. I mean, the guy's fun, and if he had sent out gifts and if he had been doing things like that, I think it would have been remarkable. It probably would have added 20% more cash to the whole thing, and who knows how many more votes. But that is. There's a million things that go into what happens in an election. I think it's still an opportunity. I think it's an opportunity for Republicans in general to use this rich media, to use the interaction, to really take the 8 pro tips for political texting and elevate your game. And if you want to elevate your game, there are multiple ways to do that. I recommend people check us out at politicaltradesecrets.com. You can sign up to be a Political Trade Secrets insider and get exclusive stuff at politicaltradesecrets.com. We have all the episodes. We'll have this episode up within the next 24 hours. You can go back. You can check out our show that we did with James Martin on fundraising with texting. So you can check that out. All these great resources. You can go there. You can also, as we've said throughout the show, you can see how you can use texting. One of the ways we've talked about the 3 ways. One is your donors and your supporters, your volunteers, having your personal texting community, and see how that's done. That's different than most of what we're talking about today with 8 pro tips. However, you can still bring the 8 pro tips to this. So 202-918-3345. Again, 202-918-3345. Text me there. You'll get a response with a link that has you opt in. And from there on, you are going to get messages directly from me. It'll also send you my virtual card, and you can put that in your phone. That way you know that you're getting messages from Dustin Olson and Political Trade Secrets. And with that, those are some of the ways that you can elevate your game. What's another way someone can elevate their game if they're running for office, if they need to get on the ballot, if they are trying to get their message out there?
Great question. Look, if you're trying to get onto the ballot, you get one shot to do it, and you want to make it count. Nobody does petitioning better than Grassfire. It's www.grassfire.us. This is really your opportunity to make sure that you get on the ballot and do it the right way. Look, the laws are different in every state. Sometimes they can be different, and the standards can be different county by county. So you want to make sure that the job's being done and being done well. So reach out to us at Grassfire. Again, that's www.grassfire.us. Schedule that consultation so that you access the ballot and do it with folks that are trained and developed to be able to deliver your ability to get on the ballot in a way that's positive and gives you has a positive outlook.
Really honors who you are.
Yeah.
Because the truth is that a lot of times when you're trying to get on the ballot, a lot of the operations out there, if we're going to be really honest about this, they're hiring people who might be carnies.
Yeah.
And honestly, there's also people who are hiring felons. There are people who do not do background checks. You are not necessarily putting your best foot forward with folks when you kind of leave it up to folks that you don't have a high sense of what the quality is going to be. Grassfire does background checks on everybody, does a high level of training and development, as Sean was saying, in order to have people be presented in a way that really represents you as the next U.S. senator, as the next governor, as the next state legislator. That they're going to probably be the only person that somebody ever meets who represents you. And you want them to be somebody who's professional and represents you in the best light possible and gets the job done. They either get you on the ballot or they get you your message at someone's door directly to that person, and or gets their feedback and also talks to them on the phone. That's what Grassfire can provide, is having that grassroots army out there to get your message out there so fast and quick, and to do it in a professional way that ultimately you can be proud of. That's ultimately what you're looking for in this.
Absolutely.
So anything else you'd like folks to know about that? They can schedule a complimentary consultation about any one of these projects.
Yeah, you got it. Just go to www.grassfire.us. It is the best way to get connected on that, and get yourself on the ballot, get your issue on the ballot, and get one step closer to having your vision become reality.
Yeah. Well, we thank everybody for being a part of this episode. As we talked about most of the episode, we talked about 10centtexting.com. You can check it out. You can download the pro tips there. You can also, if you're interested in working with me and Sean and really taking your leadership to the next level, you can go to olsonstrategies.com and set up a consultation or email us there. We've got our emails there at the bottom. But really do appreciate everybody who joined this conversation. Really some great thoughts, great questions. Already it's still getting more comments and questions, so thank you very much for doing that. If you are watching this on replay, if you're watching or you're listening to this on podcast, do please leave a review, leave a comment. That way we can follow up with you as well, and do reach out to us. We really do appreciate folks who want to be a part of this conversation, who really do want to empower conservatives, empower Americans to be the most effective citizens possible for our country, so that they can be powerful political leaders for their community, their state, in the United States of America, and really that we have the ability to reignite American patriotism. So please do join us in this in this movement. We really do appreciate your time. And we will be back tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern Time for another great episode of Political Trade Secrets. I want to mention, as we're wrapping up here, we had the episode yesterday with Jason Meath, which was very popular. People are loving it. And his book is excellent. I've had a number of people say that they've actually ordered it, and highly recommend doing that. If you join the texting community, I put the number up there. I've sent out the books that we're doing. We're going to be having Michael Rechtenwald. I believe it's going to be I probably shouldn't try to get this right.
April 13th.
April 13th, we're going to be having Michael Rechtenwald, the Google Archipelago, on the digital gulag and the simulation of freedom. I just finished the book last night. Excellent book, and it gave me some clarity on maybe ways to fight cancel culture and how to fight the big tech overlords. And not to fight them, like to put them in their place or anything like that, just to give people the ability to have freedom of speech.
Yep.
So that was an excellent book and highly recommend it. So we're going to be talking with him. And then we're going to be having Scott Young on, I believe that's going to be, when are you becoming the Grand Poobah at the Elks?
April 6th.
April 6th.
Yes.
So unfortunately, Sean's not going to be a part of it because he's getting installed as the Grand Poobah for the Elks that night. But Scott Young, that's going to be interesting. So Ultra Learning, this is the best book because every single candidate has to ultra learn. They have to and he talks about how you can actually go about doing that.
Well, I'm going to be watching it after the fact because I'm looking forward to the conversation, and I hate that I'm going to miss it live. But it's going to be a great episode, so I do encourage everyone to join us for that.
I got a question here. When do you have time to read? I find it to be so important to be a good strategist. If you go back and watch your episode Fusion Strategy, the only way to get insights and see outside of what your typical perspective is to take on other people's perspectives. And so you have to do it. And I do it by using Audible mostly. And this is what I do. If a book meets the threshold of being worthy of my physical library, which this book has clearly, and the other books, then I get the physical book. So I usually know by 25 to 30% of the way through the book if this is going to rise to the level of having the physical copy of it, and then I get that, and that's what I finish with. But I can get through the Audible stuff really fast, and I can find out if the book is actually worthwhile. That's just a little extra pro tip there at the end. You get the best stuff at the end. But thank you, Renee, for the question for that. And it really does make a difference for us. Sean, thank you again. Thank you to everybody for the great comments. And this has been another episode of Political Trade Secrets.
Join us next time by subscribing on iTunes and get show notes and sign up for our newsletter at politicaltradesecrets.com.